All right. Welcome to the final seminar in our history of philosophy. Today we're going to talk about the great mystery and new practicing philosophy in the modern age of artificial intelligence. I was originally going to loop back to Plato and talk about the Gorgias, but last week there seemed to be some interest in artificial intelligence and pursuing that and in neurophysiology. So we sort of understand a little bit more about what's going on here. So we'll change that topic for today. All right, all the course materials, of course, are available. I'll have this week's and last week's materials available probably around noon today. Everything will be completed. And if you have jump drive, I have them ready to download for you today. Okay? This is the final seminar. Okay. Seminars 1 through 7, remember, we're tracing the single idea, the only idea. The idea that there are two substances, in various ways of describing these two substances, the soul and matter, thinking substance, extended substance. Depending upon who is talking, at what time they're talking, they will be describing these two things in different ways. However, this is the only thing that has predominated the history of philosophy since its beginnings. And it's the most critical element because it determines the fundamental nature of reality. Okay? If there are two substances, a thinking substance and an extended substance, that is a lot different than if there's only one thing, material stuff. All right, and we'll take a look at some of the implications of that. So these are ontological claims, they're claims about the actual nature of reality. They begin way back in our distant past. We can trace them at least back to 6000 BCE, and they originated with a person's experience while practicing meditation, hypnosis, ritual, magic, all that kind of stuff. People who practice those kinds of things have this experience, that there are in fact two substances, a thinking substance, which I am, and then the body and the extended world beyond that. Okay, so this is based in multiple billions of experiences of people across the ages who have had these kinds of experiences based upon their meditative practice. And then we just traced it all the way through, from the pre-Socratics and the ancient Greeks to the Gnostics and early Christians, and then to the modern times, where it was elaborated and placed into a scientific framework with Descartes. And that's the beginning of the scientific interpretation of this, which we will take a look at the modern version of this as of today. Okay? We talked about Hume, Kant, Hegel, Berkeley, Leibniz, Spinoza, Feiner with his concept of the philosophy of as if. Because of the nature of reality, because there are these two things, one of the problems we have is that it's difficult to know what is true and what is real. Because we're removed from the extended world. Everything that we perceive and everything that we have an experience of the extended world comes through the nervous system of this particular object here. And it is an extremely narrow band set of information that we get in our consciousness. There's a lot that we don't know. There's a lot that we don't have direct access to. And so that sets up the necessity for probabilistic models of the way the world operates and models in general. Rather than having direct, concrete, certain knowledge of things, we only have probabilistic understandings that we then use to model the external world. And then we test those models against experimentation and against our own experience to see how valid they are. All right? And Feiner just gives a whole bunch of examples of fictions that we use in order to organize our experience and explain the world. Bunches of them. All right? So that's very important. Husserl is the modern phenomenologist. His method is based upon the Cartesian method of skepticism. He modifies it just a little bit and makes it a little bit more tight and describes it a little bit better than Descartes did. Wittgenstein, Heidegger, Sartre are all contemporary with that and Husserl, and they're all dealing with the same problem at the same time. Sartre and Heidegger are pupils of Husserl. And they disagreed with him, especially Heidegger, because phenomenology leads to an idealistic interpretation of things. Okay, that is that the primary component of our reality is mind. That's an idealism. And the modernists, especially following Nietzsche and Hegel, do not want that. They want a materialist bias, because the material world is at least manipulable. Okay? And so they do not like idealistic theories. So Heidegger and Sartre are both sort of opposed to Husserl, even though they talk about themselves as if they were phenomenologists. They are not. They do not really practice phenomenology. And Heidegger, as we discovered in Being and Time, it was supposed to have 3 sections, remember. The first 2 sections were to describe, the first section was to describe the method, the second section was to describe the actual world in phenomenological terms, and the third section was to link consciousness to time as a materialist kind of a thing, to get away from an idealist perspective. However, at the end of section 2, he had basically argued himself into an idealist corner. Okay? And so he had to stop and not continue with part 3 because he was up against an idealist version of the world, and he didn't want to adopt that. Okay, no matter where we start, because we are mind, the more argumentation we have, the more ways that we analyze the external world and our relationship with it, the more it takes us back to an idealist interpretation. Always. All right? Now, Sartre is the poor man's Heidegger. A little bit easier to read, but a lot less tight. Okay? And so it's sort of a plagiarism of Heidegger. The New Age Hermeticists, we took a look at them because they are the encapsulation of the ancient mystery religions. If we practice if we practice the rituals that are included in the Golden Dawn's ritual manuals, we will be doing exactly what the ancient mystery religions were doing, to the letter, using the languages that they used, using the symbols that they used, using the ritual practices that they used. So we can actually recreate the ancient mystery religions today in modern life and understand what it is that they were trying to tell us. Then we talked about a little bit about quantum philosophy, because it is with the quantum revolution beginning in 1900, it was overturning a lot of the conceptions of the way that the external world operates. And there's a lot of these paradoxes that happen once you start to look at quantum physics. Strange things begin to happen at that quantum level. Also on the macro level, from relativity, strange things begin to happen there. Okay? And so that's why we took a look at quantum philosophy. And basically, classical mechanics from Newton on talked about universal gravity and the 3 laws of motion. And then quantum mechanics talked about black body radiation, the photoelectric effect, and uncertainty, Heisenberg's uncertainty. And then we took a look at relativity, which gives us, E equals mc squared, and then the concept of space-time gravity. All right? Any questions about all that? Hi. Comments or questions about any of that before we get on with today's stuff? Okay? So keep in mind that we're tracing this idea, beginning in our ancient understandings, our ancient experiences, which we can replicate today through, ritual, hypnosis, and meditation, that there are these 2 things. And so now we come up to the present time. Materialist neuroscience. Right now, neuroscience is dominated by materialism. You will find very few people out there who are willing to admit an idealist neuroscience. Okay? Consciousness is an epiphenomenon of the activity of the brain. That's all it is, according to the materialists. Therefore, artificial intelligence and brain-computer interface are possible. This is where they're headed. Okay? In other words, what they are saying is that the only thing that exists is the material world. There is no soul. Once your body's dead, you're gone. You only have one shot at this place. And so, therefore, we need to develop artificial intelligence machines with which we can interface so that we can exist beyond the length of the lifespan of this particular body in a computer.
In a computer?
In a computer. Okay? That's where all neuroscience is headed right now. and has been headed since, probably I would say since Wundt in the latter part of the 19th century. Okay, so the behaviorists, Wundt was a behaviorist, he was also an experimentalist. We have the behaviorists, we have the materialist neuroscientists. They are the ones who have predominated the research up until today. And this is why. Because they are convinced that this place is all there is, that there is no soul, there is no consciousness, nothing of that really exists. It's just sort of this byproduct of the fact that the nervous system operates the way that it does. When the body dies, the person dies with it, and therefore if we want immortality, we don't want to practice meditation, we want to learn how to interface with the computer, because computers can last longer than these things. Okay, let's take a look at artificial intelligence in ancient times. Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. Okay? This is the first mention in, ancient history about artificial intelligence creations. Okay? Why is that? Because Adam is a golem. Okay? A golem is an artificial creature created from mud and imbued with life through occult rituals. The Talmud describes Adam as a golem. Keep in mind the Genesis story. How did God create Adam? He formed him out of the mud of the earth and then breathed life into it. And then he took one of the ribs and created Eve. So Adam is an artificial intelligence machine, created by God out of inanimate matter. Okay? The earliest reference to golems occur around 1000 BCE in Psalms 139:16. Thine eyes did see my substance yet being imperfect. That is the translation of the word golem. And in thy book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. So that's from the King James Version. So this is the Hebrew, okay, from right to left. Gimel Lamed Mem. Golem. And that's the translation. Means unshaped form or something that is crude or unshaped. Okay? So the golem is a creature created out of mud that is then imbued with life through occult or magical or godlike powers. This is the Prague golem, the most famous of all golem stories. It occurs in the 16th century CE. Rabbi Judah Lo ben Bezalel created a golem to protect the Prague ghetto from anti-Semitic attacks and pogroms, according to the legend. He constructed the golem of mud from the Vltava River and breathed life into it using ancient Kabbalistic magic. The golem went insane and began killing everybody. Okay, so that's the story of the Prague golem, and that's a picture of the rabbi and the golem itself. Notice the Hebrew golem, because that's what imbues it with life. Okay, also the homunculus, from the Latin, it means little man. The concept first appears in the visions of Zosimos, written in the 3rd century CE. Nicholas Hartsecker suggested that sperm contained homunculi, and here's his picture of it. So inside of a sperm cell are these little homunculi, which then gestate inside of the female's uterus and grow and develop until they become the baby. Okay? Now, based upon this idea, there were magicians who said, if I just have some sperm and the right magical powers, I can create living things without the benefit of a female. Okay? So creation of an artificial person and artificial intelligence using sperm and magic. The homunculus theory of mind is based upon Descartes' idea of a Cartesian theory. Okay? If we are a thinking substance which is interacting with this thing in order to have experiences based upon the nervous system, what we get is the Cartesian theater. We have us sitting inside the mind having an experience based on visual input. So this is the Cartesian theater. Materialists hate this. Okay, for a number of reasons, many of them valid. Okay, the homunculus, that is the self of the soul, is perceiving the information relayed by the eyes, the retinas, and the visual cortex in this model. Okay, so that's the homunculus idea. Well, Stephen Michael Koslin, in these two books here, okay, this is called Image and Mind in 1980, and this is called Image and Brain in 1994. He's a professor of cognitive sciences, cognitive neuroscience at Harvard. And in these two books, he outlines a materialist interpretation of the Cartesian theater. And it's good stuff. Okay, hard to read, really complex and very hard to read. But here he addresses the problem of the Cartesian theater, and he's attempting to resolve the difficulties. How do we explain the fact that we have this synthetic totality, this visual experience, okay, just using the nervous system itself and the eyes and the retinas and everything else? How can we do that? Here he provides some possible ways of modeling that. Okay, now to go back, we're talking about golems and homunculi, artificially created persons or entities. Luigi Galvani was born in 1737 and died in 1798, and he was the person who discovered the electrical nature of the nervous system in 1771 when he touched an electrode to a dead frog's leg, and it moved. Here, it actually would jump. Okay, when he connected the electrical current to it. There's an actual drawing from Galvani about how he did it. So this was the first time, 1771, when they had an idea that something electrical was going on inside the body. Now, Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, 1797 to 1851, was, of course, the writer of Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus, which was published in 1818, based on Galvani and the legends of the golem, the homunculus, Galvani's research on electricity in the nervous system. Okay? Frankenstein's monster behaves similarly to the prog golem, goes insane and starts killing everybody. All right? Now, let's take a look at some basic neurophysiology to see how this all ties together. Santiago Ramon y Cajal, 1852 to 1934, is the father of modern neuroscience. He investigated the histological, that is the microscopic features, the structural features, the histological properties of nerve cells. He created many thousand histological drawings of his research. He was a really good artist. Okay? He discovered the microscopic structures of the central nervous system pyramidal cells, which we'll get to when we talk about Dr. Eccles. And he discovered the fundamental unit of the nervous system. They called it originally the neuron. So articles prior to about 1950 will talk about the neuron. After 1950, they'll talk about the neuron, which is the current way of talking about it. So he begins by saying the central nervous system is composed of these units, these small microscopic units called neurons. Here are some drawings, just so you can see their detail. This is a drawing of the mammalian retina about 1900. The retina, of course, is the part of the eye responsible for receiving and transmitting the optical image from the surrounding world to the optical cortex. Okay, this is a drawing of the cerebellum of a chick in 1905. The cerebellum is the part of the brain responsible for motor control and muscle memory. We'll take a look at that in just a second. This is a drawing of the hippocampus of a rodent in 1911. The hippocampus is a structural component of the mammalian limbic system, which is responsible for consolidating short-term memory into long-term memory and also for spatial navigation. We'll take a look at that in a second, too. And finally, drawings of the optical tectum, of the optic tectum of a sparrow in 1905. The tectum is part of the optic system which creates an optic map with a one-to-one topographic relationship between the surrounding world and the retinoptic coordinates in the tectum. So we get a lot of this kind of analysis in Image and Mind, okay, Image in the Brain, and also here in neurophilosophy, Dr. Churchland's book on Materialist Neuroscience, okay? Because this actually does map one-to-one. It maps one-to-one with the elements out there in the extended world with the visual image. So this is pretty close to having an explanation, a model, about how we see visual images without having to rely upon the soul or the homunculus or any of that kind of stuff. So this is close, okay? This is the drawing of the Purkinje cells of a pigeon in 1899. These are the neurons located in the cerebellar cortex. And we'll see updated versions of that a little later. So this is how we think. This is the neocortex. That's what it looks like. Corbinian Brodmann, 1868 to 1918. He's a German neurologist who created a map of the cerebral cortex based on their cytoarchitectonic characteristics as revealed by histological examination. So he's taking a look at the brain and he's saying these parts of the brain must be related because they have similar microscopic components. Okay, here's the Brodmann areas. So you'll see they're numbered here. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, and on all the way on around. Okay? There's 52 of them. And here's a excuse me, a three-dimensional colorized version of it. So you can see how they work. Okay? Here's 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Okay? Back here's the 17. Yes?
You said they had similar, what kind of properties?
They have, if you take a look at the a microscopic slide of these cells here, they all look similar. And they look a little different than these.
Okay.
So he's saying that based on what they look like under the microscope, they must have different functions.
Okay.
Okay? And so what he did was he identified 52 different areas of the cortex based upon what they look like under the microscope. So, 321 is the primary somatosensory cortex, here, 321. Okay, 4 is the primary motor cortex, that's here. So this is data coming to us from the senses. This is data going from us to the muscles. 17 is the primary visual cortex, way back here. 41 and 42 is the primary auditory cortex, Wernicke's area. Okay, here. And 44 and 45 is Broca's area, which is the speech center. So we understand spoken words here, and we speak words here. Those are the areas that are most active. Now, Paul D. MacLean, 1913 to 2007, he was an American neuroscientist who developed the triune brain model between 1949 and 1952. The triune brain is composed of 3 large sections that are evolutionarily related. The reptilian complex, the paleo-mammalian complex, or the limbic system, which is his term for it, and the neo-mammalian complex, or the neocortex. Okay? He talks about this and its evolutionary role in this book here, The Triune Brain and Evolution, Role in Paleocerebral Functions. 1990, it was published by Spring and Fairlock. You can get a copy for, I think there's one out there for $200. So it's another one of those like this one that are rare at the moment, but probably will become unrare in the future. So if you want to get a copy of it, just look around. So here they are. This is the most primitive portion of the brain. Okay, and we share it with the reptiles, which is why he called it the reptilian part of the brain. It is responsible for, and here's the cerebellum down here, it is responsible for maintaining heart rate, maintaining all of the glandular functions and doing all that, just basically keeping the organism alive. So it's not very smart, and all it does is respond to external stimuli in a pre-programmed way, just like an alligator, just like a lizard, just like a frog. Okay? The next is the limbic system. Okay? Mammals have a limbic system. Reptiles do not. This is the source of the emotional life of the creature. Okay? The hippocampus is here. And then we have the rational brain. This is the neocortex. Okay? All mammals have a neocortex, but humans have a neocortex that is several times larger and more complex than any other mammals. So birds and mammals, and humans at the top of that chain, have all 3 of these parts of the brain. Okay? Now, Sir Charles Scott Sherrington 1857 to 1952. He was a British neuroscientist who received the Nobel Prize in Physiology of Medicine in 1932 for his work on the functions of neurons. So Ramon Cajal identified the neuron, and Sherrington, with two other people, talked about the functions of the neurons. Okay. Also, with respect to his work for which he won the Nobel Prize, he created Sherrington's law of reciprocal innervation. When a muscle contracts, its direct antagonist relaxes to an equal extent, allowing smooth movement of the muscles. So all muscles are paired around, they're essentially levers, okay? Fulcrum here, lever arms here, and there are two sets of opposing muscles around that. One part that will pull it this way, one part that pulls it the other way. Sherrington's law says that if these are innervated, the others relax. Okay, and that is mediated in the cortex, in the neuron. Okay, not at the muscle. It's mediated by the central nervous system. Okay, and he talks about this in the book, The Integrated Action of the Nervous System, published originally in 1906 and republished in 1947. And it's actually available as a PDF download. You can get that for free. Now, Jack Panksepp. This book right here, if you want to know everything there is to know about the neurophysiology of the limbic system, he's the one to go to. Okay, born in 1943, still alive. He's an American neuroscientist who developed the discipline of affective neuroscience. And that's what this book is called, Affective Neuroscience, the Foundations of Human and Animal Emotions. It's a graduate level text on neurophysiology. So it's kind of hard reading, but everything is here. If you want to know everything that we know about the limbic system and the emotions of mammals, including humans, this is the place to go, because it's all here. Okay, so that's a little bit of neurophysiology. So remember, what the materialists are attempting to do is to say, we need to create a computer that has all of those features, so that we can then transfer our consciousness into that computer so we can survive the death of this organism. Okay. The beginnings of modern artificial intelligence and computing begin with Charles Babbage, 1791 to 1871. He was an English mathematician. He is considered to be the father of the computer because he was the first one to build one. He is the inventor of the Babbage difference engine and the analytical engine. So this is the difference engine. Okay, the first difference engine, keep in mind, he never constructed these things. Okay, he just drew the plans for them. So the first difference engine was, the plans were drawn up in 1822. It had 25,000 parts. It would have been about 15 tons and it would have been about 8 feet tall. This is a picture of the second difference engine. It was constructed in 1981. That's what it looks like. It returned results to 31 decimal places. So it's actually more accurate than our modern handheld calculators. Okay, so this is essentially a very large adding machine. All of the adding machines, you remember those old adding machines with the lever and everything? Those are based on the difference engine. Okay, bunches of cogs and wheels arranged in series that have interlinking parts to them. Here's the analytical engine. It looks basically like the difference engine, but it has inputs with cards with holes in them. Okay? It could be programmed by punch cards. Here are the operational cards for inputting instructions, telling it what operations to perform, and these are the data cards. Okay? We call them variable cards. This is the first practical example of a Churning machine. We'll get to Alan Turing in just a second. Herman Hollerith follows Babbage, 1860 to 1929. He's an American statistician working primarily with the Census Bureau. He developed a mechanical tabulator based on 24-character punch cards to rapidly tabulate statistics. So he's looking at the stuff that Babbage had drawn plans for, and he's saying, we can do that. Okay? Issued U.S. patent number 395782 on January 8, 1889. The machines built from that patent were used to tabulate the 1890 U.S. Census. Okay? He was founder of one of the 4 businesses that later merged to become IBM. Here's the machine, and here's the card. These are the input cards, and that was the first machine that he developed. Okay, this is the Hollerith punch machine. This is the U.S. Census workers using the Hollerith punch machine, punching the data into the cards. Okay, my first job was actually using an IBM 129 card punch. So working for First Security Bank. Alan Turing, born 1912, died 1954. British mathematician and logician. He's the father of computer science and artificial intelligence. Everything we do is based primarily on his work. He worked for the British government code and cipher school at Bletchley Park as a cryptanalyst during World War II. He was a code breaker. Really good at it, too. He had a very bad ending. He was convicted of homosexuality in 1952. He accepted chemical castration via estrogen injections instead of going to prison. But they still weren't convinced that he was not a security breach, so British intelligence murdered him in 1954. Okay, if you saw the movie with Matt Damon, The Good Shepherd, okay, the character in there that is portrayed as his mentor when he goes to learn how to do this stuff during World War II, that's based loosely on this, because they murdered him because he's a homosexual and he's a security risk, because he can be blackmailed. Okay? This is a Churning machine. It was described by Dr. Turing in 1936. It is, according to him, a device that manipulates symbols on a strip of tape according to a table of rules. So this is the first description we have of a modern computer. He updated and revised this description in his 1948 paper, Intelligent Machinery. So here's the paper strip, and here's the machine that reads it. Now, they never built one. Okay. Here's Turing machine tables. So these are the rules that the machine would follow based on the input from the paper tape. Okay. This thing right here is a 3-state busy beaver machine that he designed. Theoretically. Okay. So this, notice zeros and ones. All right. Okay. This is base 14 instead of base 16. We moved to hexadecimal systems a little later after that because it offered us more options, more things that we could do with it. Now, here's the Turing test for artificial intelligence. It was introduced by Alan Turing in his 1950 paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, Mind, October 1950, volume 59, number 236. We'll take a look at the article in just a second. You can actually download it here. It's free for Mind. Basic test, conversation with two entities, one a human, the other a machine. So you're in one cubicle, you can't see the other two participants of the conversation. One of them is a computer, one of them is a human. If you cannot tell the difference between the two, then the computer is emulating intelligent responses. Okay? So that's the Turing test of artificial intelligence. Now, John von Neumann, 1903 to 1957, a Hungarian-American mathematician and polymath, knew basically everything there was to know, really smart, high genius level, contributed to computer science, among other things, the concept of the von Neumann architecture. All of our modern machines, including this one, are von Neumann machines, okay, not Turing machines. They're theoretically Turing machines, and they meet all the criteria of a Turing machine, but von Neumann made them practical. Okay? Divided the computer into several functional units. We'll look at that in just a second. He's also the developer of game theory, among other things. Here's the von Neumann architecture, the simple von Neumann architecture. Presented in 1945 in an uncompleted paper entitled First Draft of a Report on the EDVAC. The EDVAC was the Electronic Discrete Variable Automatic Computer. It was the successor to ENIAC. We'll look at that in a second. It was binary rather than decimal and utilized stored programs instead of hardwired programs, or programs fed into it by cards. First modern computer. So what he did was he said we need to break up all of the functions into separate modules. And that was the beginning of the modern digital computer. Okay? So this is his expansion of the Turing architecture into the von Neumann architecture. Here's ENIAC. ENIAC is the Electronic Numerical Integrator in Computer. It was the first Turing-complete, okay, digital reprogrammable computer. It was begun during World War II in 1943 and completed in 1946. It was begun in secret at the University of Pennsylvania's Moore School of Electrical Engineering in 1943. That's where we see it there. Okay, in 1946, it moved to the U.S. Army's Ballistic Research Laboratory, building number 328, at the Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Aberdeen, Maryland. Okay, it was primarily used to calculate ballistic trajectories. That was what it was intended to do, to calculate ballistic trajectories for, you know, guns, missiles, rockets, whatever. Okay, this photo shows Glenn Beck, sorry, I'll change that, and Betty Snyder in 1946. So they would have been at building 328. Notice how big it is. Okay, its architecture, 17,468 vacuum tubes. That's what this is. These are the vacuum tubes. So it had 17,000 and change of those. 7,200 crystal diodes, 1,500 relays, 70,000 resistors, 10,000 capacitors, 5 million hand-soldered joints. It weighed 27 tons and it took up 1,800 square feet. Okay, 8 by 3 by 100 feet. It was had input from an IBM card reader and output to an IBM card punch. And it was programmed. You had to change the programming by using these big RCA cables to change the way that it loops. So here's programmers Fran Vilas and Betty Jean Jennings at ENIAC's main control panel. Their first test problem was a computation for the hydrogen bomb for the Los Alamos laboratories. Okay? The input-output was 1 million cards. And it took them, I can't even remember, like 7 months to complete it because it was so long. Okay? This thing right here, my phone, okay, has more memory than 1 million of those things. Okay? This thing is indescribably more powerful than that. IBM introduced the first commercial computer in 1953. Okay, this is a Model 704 at NASA in 1957. So they started with the Model 701 in 1953. It was basically purchased by the Defense Department, and it was doing what ENIAC was doing. Okay, so that's the beginning of modern artificial intelligence. It starts with our concept of the Golem, and has now progressed to the point where we have computers that are in fact artificially intelligent. Here's Deep Blue, IBM's Deep Blue project. It was a chess-playing computer. On May 11th, 1997, Deep Blue beat world grandmaster Garry Kasparov, okay, by 2 wins to 1 with 3 draws in a 6-game match. So it beat him twice, lost once, and had a draw 3 times. So it won by the rules of international chess. He said it cheated. Okay? He beat it in 1996. They rewrote the program for the 1997 match and it won. After the match, they disassembled it, so we have no idea whether they cheated or not. Okay, now we're at the Watson, IBM Watson, Artificial Intelligence Computer. Okay, this is IBM's artificial intelligence computer system capable of answering questions posed in a natural language. This is the primary definition of the Turing test. You're having a conversation with a computer and a human, and if you can't tell the difference, the human is intelligent, or the computer is intelligence. That over there is a look at the architecture, the QA architecture. Okay, deep QA, high-level architecture is what it is. That's basically the components that are built into this artificial intelligence machine. QA means question and answer format. Okay, Watson on Jeopardy. Did anybody see this? We'll take a look at it in just a second. Okay? All right, let me change the tape and then we'll take a look at Watson. Okay? If something were to happen, you know, something that we're not aware of, you know, there's a sound off to the side, then you just say that. You may have heard that sound. Okay? So that,
Can you do imaginary things, like,
Sure.
you know, looking at the view or some place that you were before?
Yes.
You enjoyed it immensely.
Sure. So what we're dealing with right now is pure process. We don't want much content. Okay, but yes, imaginary objects are good if you have enough skill in imagination. Many people do, many people need to build that skill because they have never practiced that skill. Okay, so a lot of people you'll be dealing with cannot have full representations of imaginary things or even remembered things. So that's why we want to focus on what's going on in the real world right now. But yes.
Because I have done that.
Yes, because you have done that. In fact, the reason you've done that is because that is out there in the literature and everything else. Be careful of content. Okay, content creeps in at all times. All right, even in something as innocuous as, you know, your favorite place. This is the way that we are constantly manipulated because the people creating the manipulation know how to do that. So we have to be extremely wary of any content. Let the person provide the content. We're just dealing with process instructions. These are process instructions. Notice that there's, you know, you're not going to hear this, you're not going to feel that, you're not going to see these. This is just things you hear, things you feel, things you see, whatever that happens to be, to let them provide the content. If we start providing content, we run an extremely great risk of, you know, overriding their own freedom, and we don't want to do that, ever. And I mean, we will. Sooner or later, we'll be in circumstances where we will inadvertently do that. That's okay because they have normal resistances to that, but it will interfere with our ability to, you know, to maintain rapport. So that's why most of the stuff that we do is very, 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 very process oriented. And if there is content, it is merely content-free content. You know, clouds. You know, waves, you know, they can visualize waves, you know, but there's no content there. We're not telling them what to feel about the waves, or we're not telling them that the waves mean something. Okay? So, be extremely, how to put this, any product out there that tells you what to think and how to feel is potentially very dangerous. Don't let them do that. You pick what you think, you pick how you feel. And there's a bunch of stuff out there. Most of it out there, as a matter of fact, has pure content in it. Okay? So they're basically hijacking you. They're hijacking your avatar. And they're telling you what to think, they're telling you how to feel, they're telling you, you know, how to behave, they're doing all of these kinds of things. Do not let them do that. Yeah.
That include these books and seminars that's being sold out there? I mean, like, years ago, that was called Dare to Be Great.
Yeah.
And then there's the one the gentleman's doing now. I don't really remember the name of it, but
yeah. It's
essentially hyping up yourself. And
sure. Absolutely, yeah. That is the oldest con game in the world. Okay? And it's old. I mean, we can trace it back to the very, you know, ancient times. That's what they do. You know, you can be better than you are. You can be greater than you are. You can be a millionaire tomorrow. All of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They're going to hijack your mind. They're going to hijack your avatar, and they're going to steal your money. Okay?
Yeah.
Guaranteed, they're going to steal your money. Okay? Guaranteed, because that's their intention, and they're very good at it. Yeah.
And I have listened to different types of tapes that I find out the one that is I'm not getting it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested in it.
Yeah.
After twice I heard it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested.
Mm-hmm.
Automatically I reject it.
Exactly.
Don't listen to it.
Don't listen to it. Yep. Now, you have to do the same thing with the ones in which you are interested. Okay? You have to be able to reject them as well. You have to be able to go back and listen to them and raise your resistance as to what they're asking you to do, so that you maintain control.
Yeah, I don't like the one that they tell me what to do.
Exactly. The ones exactly, and that's good.
That's why
That's why you just stop. Yeah, that's why you just stop. Yeah. My favorite example is, of course, Tony Robbins.
Oh,
He is an absolute genius at this.
Does he know
He
what he's
is
doing?
probably, pardon me?
And does he know what he's doing?
Oh, absolutely. He was trained by Richard Bandler.
Oh, really?
He knows exactly what he's doing.
He's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's good at it.
Yeah,
And I mean, it is, if you want to see how it's done, look at his programs.
right.
They're really good. If you want to experience how it's done, send him some money. You'll get a phone call. Okay? You will get a phone call from one of his agents, and then you will be able to see, you'll be able to experience directly all of the subliminals, all of the NLP programming, all of the hard sell, everything. You'll be able to experience it up close and personal as they attempt to get you to buy more and more and more and more until finally you are convinced to commit $39,000 to go listen to him talk for 4 days on the island of Fiji. And they'll have you selling your firstborn and mortgaging your house to go live there. Okay? He is good. He's slick. He's smart. He knows exactly what he's doing. And he's got highly motivated people working for him who are also highly trained.
How come that's not illegal?
Because you're voluntarily complying with it. They're not holding a gun to your head. They're just using these techniques. Okay? And by the way, these are the same techniques that the government uses. And the same techniques that Madison Avenue uses. And the same, I mean, they sell us, deodorant the same way.
The evangelists too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love to hear them.
Yeah.
It's just all of a sudden you get hypnotized
Yep.
into it.
Absolutely.
I never
Absolutely.
say because I said pay $10.
Yep, and so that's what's happening out there. They're using this very powerful technology in order to hijack you. And once they've hijacked you, the sky's the limit on what they can do. So you must, one of the reasons why we're studying this stuff is so that we know how it works and we can be less easily manipulated. But the other big one is, especially late 90s, mid 90s to late 90s, was all of the sort of explosion of timeshares.
What?
Okay?
The timeshares.
Yeah, the
Oh,
timeshares and
timeshare.
everything else.
Okay.
Yeah, if you've gone through that, you've gone through a very carefully scripted, very carefully organized, very technologically compact NLP script that convinced you to go buy this, whatever it was. And then once you were done with that, they wanted you to buy more. More weeks, more this, more that. Okay, until finally you had, 95,000 vacations that you couldn't even afford to take. Okay? Slick, very slick, but based on this technology. So that's why we have to be very careful about any content that we put forward. If it is content, if we need to talk content to them, that's why we have them tested on themselves. Is this content that is self-consistent? Is this content okay with them? And so that's why we use that. If it's not okay with them, then we have to rephrase it until it is okay with them. We never want to try to override them. This is all about freedom. This is all about them making their own choices and not having us impose our decisions and our ideas upon them. Okay? All process mostly, when we get to content, double check to make certain that it is self-consistent with the person you're dealing with, or with you, if you're wanting content. Okay? Because some of the content, like you said, it's grating, it's irritating, it's annoying. Okay? And so you just automatically reject it. Okay? And you can check it this way.
But if other thing that they say it is nice,
Mhm.
okay, it might be nice at the beginning,
Mhm.
but if you are in control, when they call you and say, buy more, you say no.
Right.
I bought whatever,
Exactly. Whatever I want. Yeah.
I'm not gonna buy anymore.
However, they're slick. They're good at it. They're good at it. The minute you answer the phone, you've already committed to something. Okay? And yes, I mean, I will just hang up on them. So what I'll do is, there's an old trick. This is a way old trick. In order to avoid appearing rude, when you hang up on someone, hang up on them when you are talking. Okay? Not when they are talking. Now, if you want to be rude, hang up on them when they're talking. But if you don't want to be rude, then just wait, interrupt them and start saying something and then just hang up. Okay? And they'll get the message. Okay? So it's like, yeah.
Do this again.
Oh, this is the it's called behavioral kinesiology. The theory is that the body becomes strong, the muscles will become strong in the presence of things that are good for you. All right. Now that has been subjected to tests and has failed. So things in the external world, like for example, one of the tests that they did was they brought in psychiatrists, psychologists, nurses, dentists, chiropractors who were using this technique. I mean, you may see people out there who are familiar with this, going up and down the grocery store aisles, checking to see which food they should buy. They'll pick it up and hold it, and then see if they go strong in its presence. If they do, then they'll put it in their basket. If they don't, then they say, okay, my body doesn't want that. And that's fine. That's as valid a decision procedure as any other. Okay, but it cannot really differentiate what's good for us from what's bad for us. The controlled studies that they've done brought in these people who practice this, who teach this, who use this in their everyday professional lives, and they had a random, double-blind, placebo-controlled bunch of stuff, some of which was toxic, some of which was healthy. And they asked them, okay, here, you can hold the vial, you can touch it, you can't open it, obviously, but if this works, you should be able to tell. None of them could tell. They could not tell the toxic substance from the normal substance. So we're sort of setting that aside because we don't know, there's no experimental confirmation of that. However, there is good experimental confirmation of the fact that it does tell us what is self-consistent with us. So, for example, I do go strong when I say things that I believe about myself. Okay? My name is Lon. My name is Alice. Okay? So, just a simple thing like that. The body does respond. Okay? So, things about us, like belief systems and things like that, this can test whether they're self-consistent. Okay? And that has experimental confirmation. So as long as we leave it within that realm, we're fairly confident that we're getting good results. So when we ask someone, here's what you want to do, here's what I'm going to say, is that okay with you? You'll say what you're going to say, and if they go strong when you say it, that's a good sign that it's okay with them. Okay? If they go weak with it, then you know that something about the way that it's phrased or the actual visual content or whatever is wrong. And so you have to rephrase it, and you have to change it or abandon it and start over. Okay, so did that answer your question? Does that make sense? Okay, so that's what this is all about. This comes out of New Zealand, actually, out of Australia.